We need to all agree as human beings, that slavery was a grave mistake and should never have happened, even though it was in the best interest of the colonial masters. All African countries voted for it, and no black majority country voted against it. It should never have happened, even though it was legal. To justify a lot of things, once you make it legal, you can justify it and make it happen. Because something is legal doesn't mean you should do it. Because something is legal doesn't mean that you should allow your people to do it, whether to improve your economy or whether to feel like you're powerful.
I think I agree with you to some point. I mean, the slavery of the old and the slavery of today, I don't really see anything different from it. Well, maybe the major difference is that before they were coming to get us, with the boat and all of that stuff. Today, we are just begging for them to come and take us. So, I mean, I don't really see any big difference with it. Maybe the condition of this thing, the way people work has changed. Before they used to lock up their mouth. Before they used to work in sugarcane plant in the open field without maybe air conditioning and all of those stuff. But today the condition have changed a little bit, but it's still largely the same.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Y and E podcast. Thank you for joining us. And if you haven't subscribed, please make sure you hit this subscribe button, like, share, and make sure you engage with us in the comment section. So we're talking about the story out of the UN General Assembly coming out and declaring that um, slavery was the gravest crime against humanity. But just like every other resolution, a lot of countries voted for it. About 52 countries abstained from it, and 3 countries voted against it. So we can't say it was unanimously voted for, because a lot of people didn't agree with it, and some countries agree with it. I think we need to all agree as human beings, that slavery was a grave mistake and should never have happened, even though it was in the best interest of the colonial masters, especially the United Kingdom, US, and some other countries that participated in slave trade. I was surprised that Cuba abstained from it. Some other countries as well, they abstained just because of them not truly understanding their position in the world, or maybe they're not ready to take accountability. And I'm thinking maybe they're thinking, many African countries want to push for reparation if this thing get passed. But it looks like all African countries voted for it, and it's obvious that no black majority country voted against it. But other countries where black people were not the predominant population voted to either abstain or voted against the resolution. I think this is just ridiculous that in 2026 we're still not on the same page as to whether slavery was a good thing or if it was a bad thing. It should never have happened, even though it was legal. To justify a lot of things, once you make it legal, you can justify it and make it happen. Because something is legal doesn't mean you should do it. Because something is legal doesn't mean that you should allow your people to do it, whether to improve your economy or whether to feel like you're powerful. What do you think?
I think I agree with you to some point. I mean, the slavery of the old and the slavery of today, I don't really see anything different from it. Well, maybe the major difference is that before they were coming to get us with the boat and all of that stuff. Today, we are just begging for them to come and take us. So, I mean, I don't really see any big difference with it. Maybe the condition of the way people work has changed. Before they used to lock up their mouth. Before they used to work in sugarcane plant in the open field without maybe air conditioning and all of those stuff. But today the condition have changed a little bit, but it's still largely the same. But it's not surprising that countries like the United States, decided to vote against the resolution. Probably they don't want to be liable for anything, although that doesn't also immune them from being from the liability of slavery, because almost in the last 3 or 4 years there has been call for reparation in the United States. In fact, it looks like Maryland is moving towards giving a reparation to descendants of slaves in Maryland. It's not also surprising that countries like a United Kingdom that benefited immensely from the slave trade, in fact, they are still benefiting. In fact, it's the core of their economy, even to today, even to tomorrow, even probably till that kingdom come, is the foundation of the economy. It's not surprising that they abstain from the vote. Perhaps they don't want to be responsible for or liable for any kind of reparation. But for me, I don't see, with all these big countries abstaining and voting it down, I don't really see any practicality of this resolution. I just feel like it's more symbolic than practical. How are they going to enforce it? How are they going to make sure that they pay the reparation? You can, because countries are sovereign, you can't technically tell them what to do, even though all of you belongs to United Nations. You can't technically tell countries what to do. They will definitely do what is in their best interest.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, and I also disagree that nothing is going to change. Yeah, I want to say that this is a big step to maybe a better treatment to come. Based on the issue of West Africa, especially in West Africa, we're saying that the colonial master came and basically pillaged the West African countries, took their resources, to some of their culture, and they left the people with nothing. And I also agree with you there's some kind of slavery still going on, even though it's illegal at this point. And you're saying that people are volunteering to put themselves into slavery. I don't really agree with that. Because at some point, you have to make a decision, right? Do you want to stay in a country where you don't have any rights? Or would you rather go be a slave in someone else's country and have rights? Because in Nigeria, you can hardly speak against any politician. They will either sue you for defamation or they'll throw you in jail without anybody asking why they're throwing you in jail. If you speak against any wealthy or powerful individual, they will throw you in jail and nothing will happen. Nobody will ask them how come or how were they able to find you guilty. We've seen and heard so many stories of people in Nigeria in prison and they've never gotten their day in court. They've never had the opportunity to go plead cases in front of a judge just because the system doesn't work. So would you rather be a slave somewhere else where your right is being respected, where you can still do some work and be able to feed your family, or would you rather stay in a country where nothing works and your people are basically suffering? People are clamoring about the fuel prices in Nigeria right now, even the wealthy ones, even the ones that are well-to-do business owners, they can barely afford life at this point. So, but you're gonna tell me you'd rather stay in that where you know that you have no rights, but you can go somewhere else where they respect you and at least you have a decent chance at life. For me, I would rather go be a slave where I will be respected, where I will have rights, where even though they remind me sometimes that you're not part of us, but at least I'll still be able to feed my family other than just staying back home and nothing is happening for me. That is my take. But I still think that even though people are still being treated like a slave in their country and they can't speak up and they can't do anything about it, I think it's also a disservice. If you're able to go to another man's country to be a slave, I'll say go for it. As long as that's what you want, I'll say go for it.
Yeah, I completely understand you that, most times because of the reality of the country where we come from, we'd rather go be a slave in another man's country than be a free person in our own country where they are pretty much the same. I honestly applaud the Ghanaian president for bringing up that issue at the UN. But the problem is that we haven't, well, let me say Nigeria. I've never been to Ghana. I don't know how Ghana works, but Nigeria has not done anything substantially to abolish slavery in Nigeria. The slavery is still very common in Nigeria. Somebody that has like a net worth of 50 million naira will go to village to bring somebody to come and help them as a helper in the house. And then they will maltreat this person. They will treat this person worse than the slave master treated us. They will control when they will eat. They will control when they can make a phone call to their parents. They will control everything about them. In fact, they measure their food. They ensure that we haven't really done anything to abolish slavery in our individual countries, especially in Nigeria. Slavery is still very common. In fact, if you take it across Africa, slavery is still ongoing in Libya. If you have the opportunity to talk to people that goes to Europe on the with this thing with on land, they get to Libya, then they're from Libya, they go through the Red Sea and go to Europe. They will tell you that there is slave market in Libya. They sell people in Libya. It's still very long going. The problem in Sudan, because of their diamond, that Saudi Arabia has been killing Sudanese people with their mercenaries. That is slavery. Even though the Saudi Arabians are not directly in the country controlling all, they are using them to control the people, to kill their people, to auction their people off. That is slavery. We haven't really done anything to eradicate slavery in our individual countries, in our continent, Africa. And then until we do that, I think that's the only way we can, begin to talk about reparation, begin to talk about resolution. I hate that I'm taking this stand, but I think where I come from, they used to say that, you learn how to dance in the house before you go outside and display your dance steps, okay? If we haven't done our homework, we haven't put effort to put an end to all this, kind of behaviors in our individual countries, in our continent, I really see no reason why the outside world will take us serious. There's no way they should take us seriously. As much as I want reparation for the suffering of our forefathers, our ancestors, but we need to do right by ourselves, and we need to do right to our people. We need to stop maltreating the people we hire to work for us, our maids, our housemates, and all of those stuff, our drivers. We need to stop maltreating them and treating them bad. We need to, treat them like, they are part of our family. But anything short of that, nobody's going to take us seriously.
Yeah, I agree with you. We're gonna lose respect if we can't really take care of our people. If we can't treat our own people right, no one is gonna treat us right when we go outside. And I also agree with the fact people go out, get a house help, and they maltreat them, which should never be the case. We don't have any laws in Nigeria against that kind of slavery. If you're working for a big guy, it's that big guy's responsibility to take care of you, to make sure you eat on time, to make sure that you're not being maltreated. But because there's no law, there's no guardrails on that, a lot of people they've maltreated their employees, they've maltreated the people, they've taken away their dignity, taken away their rights just because they're born with less privilege than they are. So I believe we need to start in our backyard before we go out there and start to ask people to treat us with respect. We need to treat each other with respect. We don't have to depend on other countries out there to survive. It's sad that most African countries can't feed their population. So if you can feed your population, if your economy is independent, even though a lot of economies are dependent on each other in 2026, but if you're independent, well, North Korea is doing it. If you can be independent, a lot of countries will respect you. A lot of people want to do business with you, and your people will be respected. I've heard from people that they get discriminated against when they travel with Nigerian passport just because we have no say in the real world, right? A lot of people look down on us just because we carry that grain passport. And it's just unfortunate that this is the fault of the colonial master. It's the fault of our leaders not leading right, not making good decisions that will favor the people. And this is where we find ourselves.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. In fact, while we are out there at the United Nations trying to put up a resolution to decriminalize or to criminalize slavery, do you realize that in Nigeria, I know for sure, especially at those states, consciously send their children abroad, especially they send them abroad, knowing fully well that they are sending them into slavery. In fact, if you go, I've never been, but in the West Asia, that is the Middle East, the kind of slavery that is going on there is out of this world. Our people, especially our females, they go there, be a house help, and they maltreat them. They treat them as, the way they treat them, they don't treat them as human beings. As soon as you land there, you get a job, you have somebody you're working for, they will take your cell phone, they will take every contact you have, you sign it. We need to, as a country, Nigeria, especially as a big, the big boy on the block, which Nigeria is regarded as in Africa, we need to stand up and, begin to attend to some of these things. Do you think Giorgio Meloni, the Prime Minister of Italy, will take us seriously when they are rescuing Nigerians every day from the Red Sea, people that are seeking asylum in Italy? that are coming out from Libya, and then every day they are rescuing them. They set up a camp for them. You think when we go to UN for resolution to criminalize slavery, that Jojo Maloney will take us seriously? There's no way she will take us seriously. So we need to do our homework. We need to start from home. We need to start criminalizing it from our home, from our various houses. All these politicians, a lot of them have a house helps that they maltreat, that they maltreat, and they treat as worst of the human beings. So if we really want to make any meaningful change, we need to start from our various homes. Let us know what you think about the United Nations resolution on the slavery, and we'll be happy to engage with you in the comment section.